Welcome to Employment Law This Week. I'm George Whipple. Employers are encouraging their employees to use their vacation time this summer to avoid a crush of end-of-year vacations. But how will the pandemic affect employees who return to work from out of state, from overseas, or from a COVID-19 hotspot? Epstein, Becker Green's Nancy Popper has more.
While the CDC has recommended quarantine periods following certain international travel, generally it's not going to be mandatory. It's also important to remember that certain foreign nationals who are in the U.S. may be prohibited from re-entering the U.S. after travel to certain countries. Now, some states and cities, like New York State or Chicago, have instituted mandatory domestic travel quarantine for when someone returns from certain states. There are consequences to these mandatory quarantine periods, especially on pay. New York State, for example, has enacted a paid leave law for employees who are required to quarantine. But this law does not apply if someone has willingly traveled to a state that is deemed to be on this quarantine list. However, it's not clear whether someone who has traveled to one of these hotspots would be eligible for pay under the Federal Families First Coronavirus Response Act, or the FFCRA, which provides up to 2 weeks of paid leave for certain employees who are subject to quarantine orders. It's important for employers to consider providing information to employees about these domestic travel orders with respect to how they're going to be treating paid quarantine time or unpaid quarantine time, and to consider all of the applicable federal and state and local laws that may be applicable during the quarantine period. Many employers in states that have quarantines in effect based on domestic travel are implementing questions about quarantine or travel into their daily screening questionnaires, which employees who are physically returning to the office need to answer before they're permitted to come into work each day. Many states have off-duty conduct laws, which would prohibit employers from taking adverse action against employees for lawful off-duty conduct. Normally, we would think of taking a vacation as lawful off-duty conduct. There are, however, some carve-outs where the conduct has an adverse effect on the employer, where the employer may inquire into these different types of conduct. Most would consider the health and safety concerns of its employees during this pandemic to warrant such inquiries or place certain restrictions on travel if it's going to impact the employee's ability to work during the quarantine period.
Thanks, Nancy, and thank you very much for watching. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time.